the show, Wednesday, the 17th of July. I am Boston Amafaye, and this is your Business Morning. This day, live to you from Channels Television, Nigeria's news leader. This is the biggest story Nigeria is battling with right now. It has to do with what you call violent crime enterprise. Nigeria's State Senate says it's moving to convene a national security summit due to the spate of violent criminal enterprise that's spreading across the country, and the authorities deploy more security agents to curb it. The president of Senate, Ahmed Lawan, says on Tuesday that the situation in the country is pervasive. He says every part of the country has one story or another to tell. He described the state of the country's insecurity as, quote, unfortunate, end of quote. So, where are the new highways of insecurity in Nigeria? Of course, you already know, but we'll have to talk about this, bringing it all into the burner of the economics. The Ife, Ilesha, Akure Road in Nigeria's once very stable southwest has become a new highway of insecurity. Also becoming very dangerous is the Kaduna-Abuja Highway, as well as the Akure-Owo, Ikare-Okene Road. Now, if you're familiar a little bit, our viewers with this road, this is the artery of the southwest linking the north-central part of the country, the Middle Belt region, and all the way to the north. And this is very highly commercial area. Now, what does this mean for Nigeria's struggling economy? We'll have this conversation within the hour. Nigerian authorities are deploying more forces to the highways, but will it resolve the country's very weak economic position? And what does it really mean, the ease of doing business under high level of insecurity? Meantime, the authorities are also battling something different, and that has to do with the new minimum wage. Now, the umbrella body for all labor unions in the country, the NLC, says it's in the stage of mobilizing total industrial strike if the negotiations ongoing with the government failed to deliver on the new higher 30,000 minimum wage. That was a lot of conversation through last year and the early of this year. Then Mr. President received a report and says it will be implemented. Meantime, the president within the last 24 hours has directed the payment of the new minimum wage to federal workers currently earning below the new 30,000 naira threshold. But the labor says money. In fact, the NLC says they want the new payment structure to take effect backdated to April the 18th this year, when the executive branch agreed to the new deal. But some good news here, a bit of a look back, but again, it shows how much the Buhari's administration has been doing in the business of agriculture. According to the Vice President, about 120 billion naira has so far been pumped as loans into the credit facility granted to more than 720,000 farmers via the central bank's Anchor Borrowers Program. According to the Vice President, the Buhari's administration is therefore planning to extend more of this agri-credit to farmers in the country's southern part to get more farmers to engage in mechanized form of agriculture. The farmers who are already benefiting under the Anchor Borrowers Program of the federal government's interventions are those who are cultivating rice, cotton, soybeans, cassava, poultry, and granite. Back into the marketplace, where listed oil trader Cornell PLC has announced the final dividend payment of 200 kobo, which will be due to shareholders on the 23rd of next month. The shareholders, according to the company, in an information shared with the Nigerian Stock Exchange as part of its reporting requirements, says the shareholders will get the final dividend of 200 kobo via an electronic dividend payment system. If you're in the market, you already know what the closure dates are, but in case you don't, that's August 5 to 9. That's what we call the closure date for the payment of the final dividend, 200 kobo, or 2 naira per share, by Cornell PLC. So let's ask Simple Ashaju how the market performed yesterday, but of course we all know that the stock market remained very tepid. There is no tonic yet for this market to get its vigor all the way back. But let's just give Temple a few minutes to take us through the numbers. Temple, good morning. Welcome to the show.
Good morning, Bosun.
It's good to have you. So, run us through the numbers. Looks like the very lackluster negative sentiments at the marketplace is still there. Yesterday, we had just about 10 gainers and about 2 dozens, or a little bit more than that, of stocks on the laggards table.
What that says is that there seems to be no money elsewhere for investors, for traders to pick and come and invest in equities due to low prices anymore. Again, perhaps some of the investors that are smarter enough are waiting for prices to go much lower for them to be able to put their money on these low numbers, because if you check in the last 2 weeks or thereabouts, the numbers have actually crashed much lower than they were, in this period of comparison. But so let's look at how we're down yesterday to some 0.49% movements negative yesterday in the market. We saw the all-share index of the market falling back to 28,200.88, and that seemed to be the lowest since the 23rd of May 2017, some 2 years ago. Year-to-date performance is now down to 5.89%. It's expanded further to that level. Month-to-date is at 10.28%, and of course, activity level yesterday, we saw an inversion. In terms of the volume, it was positive. It rose by some 24%. But when you look at the value of the transaction, it was down by some 16%. And go by the sectors. Of course, given the fact that investors generally gave cold shoulders to a lot of the sectors and a lot of the companies, in the market yesterday, we saw only the consumer goods segment of the market and the insurance side of the market doing some gains yesterday in the market, thanks to Nestle, that helps the consumer good, and of course, NEM Insurance and Lasaco. Since the lifting of the suspension on Lasaco seems to have made some comeback to the market in recent time. So the banking sector was down. The industrial goods segment of the market was down. CNN lost 10%, and that was one of the worst yesterday in the market, as well as chemical and allied products, which was down by the same margin, 10% yesterday. Oil and gas was really, really lackluster yesterday. Maybe the dividend coming from corn oil will do some good, some positive to corn oil eventually. Corn oil, but yesterday was down 9.256%. Forte oil was down, Eternal oil was down, Japol, and of course, Capital Oil. These 2 key companies were also down. In terms of the unquoted securities market, yesterday was down by some 0.60%. In terms of the top reading there, you have the market capitalization at 521 billion naira, and of course, volume of transaction at 322,000 plus, valued at 93.01 million naira. We had 13 deals there yesterday, and CSCS had some 5 deals out of all of that, but closed lower at 13 naira 6 kobo yesterday, all the way from 14 naira 28 kobo. For the fixed income side of the market, the bond side of it, of course, remained bullish. We saw investors, going further for going more with interest to bonds. Of course, some investors are looking at reinvesting their coupon, and of course, that's the plan. But then they're looking at the mid to the longer end of the curve. That's why the yields were, on the average, lower by some 7 basis points yesterday. But finally, Treasury bills was a bit mixed. I think investors instead are kind of preparing for the 107 billion naira OMO auction that the CBN, will carry out today. But basically, yields were flat yesterday on that side of the market. Bosun.
Interesting market to round up there. Thank you so much, Temple. We'll get back. We're checking with you, looking at some of the news in the corporate box later in the show. Thank you from the Nigerian Stock Exchange, our studios downtown. One of the stories in the oil and gas sector has to do with Seplat. You heard about corn oil announcing the final dividend of 2 naira per share for the year ended 2018, payment day 23rd of August. But if you look at the same industry where you have the only E&P, which is exploration and production company, Seplat PLC says it's going big, almost $1 billion into gas business. Let's take a quick listen to what Austin Avuru, the CEO of Seplat Petroleum Development Company PLC, told his audience a few days ago. Why this business is important and what it means for Nigeria's energy sector.
For the avoidance of doubt, we're an oil and gas company, and our oil production remains substantial. Operated oil production, over 70,000 barrels a day, operated, gross. So we remain a fairly sized independent oil company. But in addition to that, we've taken deliberate decisions as a company to invest heavily in the gas business for gas supply to the domestic market. And so in 2012, took a deliberate decision to work towards achieving domestic energy security in Nigeria. But not to do so as an NGO, but to do it as a business. With the power revolution that the government was embarking on to increase sustainable gas supply to power and increase power supply to the populace, we saw a projection where domestic gas demand was going to grow from that 300 million scope to about 1 BCF about now, and we're still thinking another 3 to 4 years it will get closer to 2 BCF per day. And with this projection was also a projection in increase in price. Again, because there was no domestic market for gas, there really was no pricing framework for gas before 2011, 2012. Once we saw the price heading towards $1, $1.50, we knew there was business to be done. So we deliberately started investing in the gas business. Took that decision in 2012, and of course, you know, we did our IPO, the joint listing both here and in London in 2014. What I forgot to put in this bar is our premium listing, which is a landmark event that we had here 4 years after our primary listing. Power sector payment risk, I think our confidence comes from the fact that as we speak, and over the last 3 years, we have been delivering about 350 million scf of gas into the domestic market on an annualized pricing average of about $3 per thousand, and now we're receiving payments. So it's an area we are familiar with. The risk is there, but we also know that of all the suppliers in the market, if you are an anchor supplier where the demand centers know that you will always deliver, you probably also be the first to get paid. But overall, I can say that from our experience, we have very low levels of receivables in our gas business. Most of it is in naira, but it's low risk. Now, some of our arm's length contracts that take or pay contracts with real payment guarantees in them, including some partial risk guarantees by international organizations. So we built all of those into. So again, the payment risk guarantee, in our view, is minimal and is something we can manage. Finally, employment in Imo is already started. We've cleared 86 hectares of land. People were working there. Contractors were working. We're going to spend between now and Q1 of 2021 a lot of activity. When you are spending $700 million in a project, it drops off to everybody. Equipment suppliers, those who are local contractors, all of the civil works are being done by local contractors, most of them from Imo State itself. So, and any multiplier effect, when we start delivering gas, there will be truckloads daily of taking LPG from there into the domestic market, the condensate being sold. So you can only visualize the full impact on the economy of Imo State. And again, it's something we're very proud of. This project has been on the drawing board for 12 years until we came into OML 53 just 3 years ago. And we decided to take it up because of our experience in the West, in Oben. We knew it was something we could pull off the table. And really, this project, as Yetunde said, is one of government's 7 critical gas projects. Is the only one that has reached FID. And we initiated that. So you can see that we are in a terrain that we are familiar with, in a terrain from which we've made money, we've delivered gas, we've helped to generate electricity. And this is just building on what we have done in the past. And as I said at the beginning of this presentation, when this is all over, we will, as a company, have processing capacity, operated processing capacity for gas of over 800 million scf of gas a day. Even at a demand, a local demand, domestic demand of 2 BCF a day, you will see that will easily be accounting for about 40% of total gas to the domestic market by the time this project achieves first gas in Q1 2021.
Austin Afuru, the Managing Director of Seplat Petroleum Development Company, PLC. But from gas infrastructure to brick and mortar infrastructure, building roads, rails, and bridges. Of course, President Buhari has dissolved his first-term cabinet, but some of those cabinet ministers still use every available opportunity to speak to what the administration had achieved and what perhaps may have achieved moving forward. So here is Babatunde Rajifashola, the immediate past Minister of Power, Works and Housing, and he told his audience 2 days ago about what the administration has achieved and how much more the securities market can do to support the government infrastructure projects. Take a listen.
But my comments really are just to suggest, perhaps to all of us, that amidst the clouds, but perhaps there is a silver lining. And if I was a stargazer or a crystal ball watcher, I will tell you that the omens are good. And please permit me to explain further. I say this because in the last few years, Nigeria's commitment to public spending has essentially doubled at the federal government level. The national budget has increased from 4 trillion to 8 trillion, and yes, some will argue, rightly so, that those values have perhaps not come true totally because of inflationary costs, exchange rates diminution. But I think the significance is there that there is some positivity in thought and action. An increase and a commitment to spend more on infrastructure is something that all of us should welcome, because the quality of infrastructure will ultimately determine the quality of our lifestyle. And I think that commitment then has linkages with what we are here to do today. There is a deficit funding, there's a gap in financing, and there lies the opportunity for investors, for bankers, for capital market operators, and all of the people that this literary feast will address by the reviewers today. But let me set a context for why I think, again, the omens are good. About 17 years to the day, in this state, we were trying to persuade the Nigerian investment community and government that a state government should be allowed to go to the capital market and raise money in this state. And ultimately, after many huffs and puffs, federal government inevitably allowed that to happen. All of the regulatory authorities converged and approvals were given. But that was 17 years ago. And how much was the debt that was sought to be raised from the capital market then? 25 billion naira for a state government of 20-something million people. How far was that going to go? But shortly after that, some things have happened again. From 25 billion naira, the same state government issued a 167 billion naira program. So from 2002 to 2012, a decade or thereabouts, things have moved in leaps and bounds. And so if the clouds are gathering today, and I tell you that the omens are good, I really mean that they are good. But beyond the state, we are now at a point, another interesting milestone in our country. Private companies are now raising 10-year money in this market. And I was privileged to have been invited to a gas infrastructure project in Ogun State recently. Not only was it financed through money raised in the market, it was also a critical beneficiary of pension funds. So some interesting things are happening. So while everybody is talking about what is not happening, I have chosen to focus on what is happening.
Babatunde Raji Fashola, Nigeria's immediate past minister in charge of power, works, and housing. Another thing that is working or happening in Nigeria is what you call violent crime enterprise. The CEO at ProShare Nigeria calls it a hustler's paradise. So let's talk about this when we come back. What's the economic cost of this rising wave of insecurity across Nigeria, now harassing the life and property of those in Nigeria's southwest? That's what we're talking about next. Counting the cost of criminal enterprise in Nigeria.